Welcome to the Impact Storyteller Show. My name is Anna Ngurachu, also known as the Impact Storyteller. I'm the author of the book 10,000 Steps Towards Me, creator of Impact Storyteller, which focuses on writing and personal development coaching. As a writer, I tell stories of impact that cause people to reflect, change, and act towards living authentically. Through my coaching, I help those who dare to change to think and live differently and hopefully make an impact in their lives. I also currently consult as a development economist. The Impact Storyteller Show is an online show that gets down to real talk with a selective caliber of guests, and we focus on personal development and self-discovery. In my book, I touch on 12 aspects that may influence your ability to live authentically. Today, we will dig into one aspect. To dive into the other 11 aspects, I've put a free framework of reflective questions called a dozen reflective doses that will help guide you through your own self-discovery process. You can find the link below. So today we have the pleasure of having Sonia Dube join us. If you haven't heard that name, then you are in for a treat. Sonia describes herself as an authenticity chaser who is extremely passionate about helping everyday Black women see themselves right in order to live more authentic and fulfilled lives. She has worked through adjusting and rewriting her life story from one of victimhood, low self-worth, people-pleasing, codependency, and fear to one of victory, self-acceptance, courage, and authenticity. Sonia currently helps people live authentic lives as a life story coach, book editor, and orchestrator. The motto that drives Sonia's work with others is a quote by Lao Tzu, which goes, "Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power." So welcome, Sonia. Thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you, Anna. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for the honor.
It's a pleasure. So as mentioned, we like to jump straight into the topic, Sonia. So our theme today is framed under the concept of hidden figures, the subtle power of your self-belief. So I'm going to jump straight into the main question, and then we'll move on to some follow-up questions. So Sonia, has there been a disconnect between your self-belief and who you truly are, or at least feel that you are? Could you share a little bit more about that and maybe about your life story, the one of victimhood, low self-worth, people-pleasing, codependency, fear that you mentioned in your bio?
Sure, yes, Anna. And that's such a good question. I think it's certainly something that many of us grapple with, the self, that disconnect between your who you truly are and what you believe or what you've been also told, I suppose. But I definitely can say there has been a bit of a disconnect between the two. So, and that's probably why I ended up struggling with things like low self-worth, codependency, and all of that. I think it's pretty plausible that someone would struggle with some of these things because you are, in essence, trying to realign yourself with your most authentic self. So I would say it started probably as a little girl. So as a child, I think children are pretty comfortable with who they are. As children, we start off as, I think that's our most authentic selves when we are young.
Right.
Yeah, if you've ever engaged kids, they'll tell you like it is. They have no issues. If they don't like something, you're gonna know, whether it's them saying it directly or sort of their behavior or how they allude to it. So I would say probably started maybe around the age of 7 or 8, or around there, because when I was 2 years old, I actually had retinoblastoma, which is cancer of the eye. So my left eye was removed and it was replaced with a prosthetic. So as a child, children, how they are, there was a bit of bullying. Yeah. Oh, what's wrong with you? You've got a funny eye, all these things. Yeah. And my interpretation of that was there's something wrong with me.
I see.
So I think that's sort of when the belief in self started getting eroded slowly but surely. Why am I different? And I hadn't had these conversations with my parents. Anna, are you still there? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I was trying to make sense of this on my own. And as a child, you can't really make sense of everything. So I did struggle with feeling different.
Right.
And I think that's really where the question started coming up. Why am I different? Why do I look different? I didn't understand then that that was a medical condition. It's nothing that was within my control, So I didn't interpret it that way. For me, it was, there's something I've done wrong. There's something I'm not doing right. Let me just take a step back. So I remember then growing up, I'd even do hairstyles to sort of cover my left eye so people couldn't see and couldn't make, comments about it. And I started really believing that I just need to stay under the radar. Okay. I just need to, I can't be too excellent and I can't be, terrible either. Mm-hmm. Let me just be average and just ride that wave so that no one really notices me,
Yeah.
And that was my belief. You just belong just somewhere under the radar so that you're not noticeable. And so I think that's where the self-worth started eroding. And I think also in terms of needing to please, it was, okay, I want to be accepted. I want to be enough. I want to be part of a group of people. Yeah. So how do I get that? And I think, growing up in an African culture as a Christian, the values that are encouraged are be a good girl, listen to your elders.
Yeah.
Don't be too contesting, So I think that's where the people pleasing came in. Okay, I mustn't push the boundaries too much. Let me just do what everyone else likes. That seems to get an applaud and an acceptance of self. So I think that's where that came in as well. And I sort of just rode that into my adolescence and early adulthood. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot for a little child to have to deal with. I mean, there's all these pressures from our society, our families already, but you decided, okay, this is the mask I'm going to wear so I can be under the radar and fit in this box that people want me to fit in, so I don't cause any attention to myself. But I'm sure, I mean, even as you grew up and you went into adolescence, it started affecting your life beyond. I mean, as a child, you can pretty much get away by not being seen. But as you get older, you kind of need to find your voice, find your place in this, this world, so to speak. How did it start to affect your life later on, after, in your adulthood? And what was the aha moment that something needed to change?
Yeah. No, you're spot on. It's definitely, the older you grow, the more uncomfortable it becomes. I think for me, probably how it started affecting my life was my relationships. That was a big one. I found that my friendships, even maybe potential, I didn't even date that much. That's how much it affected me, because I found that I was contorting myself depending on which space I was in. So which group of friends, whether I was at school or varsity, whether I was around a certain group of people, whether I was at church or not, I was working overtime to make sure that I was ticking certain boxes for these different groups, so that I am accepted. And it was starting to feel like work. It was heavy. It was a lot. And I think it came with a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty of self, obviously, that continued to perpetuate itself. And, to the point where it impacted what I studied, because I wanted to do what my parents thought, was good enough. And I mean, they were well-meaning, don't get me wrong. They obviously meant very well. But I think that's after I finished my degree, and I was now working. I had now started my job. It was a good company, good paying job. But there was a sense of emptiness, and a sense of feeling lost. I think that for me was the aha moment. Like, okay, you can't continue living like this. You're not happy. You are not fulfilled. Other people around you are applauding you. It seems like you have this good life that you've built, but it doesn't feel like yours. So I think that's where the aha moment came through. Like, this is affecting your internal well-being and your enjoyment of life. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a particularly brave point to get to, because a lot of people will probably just, sweep that under the carpet and say, no, that's just, that's just my subconscious telling me something wrong. But yeah, you owned it and said, this is not who I am. This is not the life that I want for myself. And well done for doing that. Not very many people get to that point. And how did you, once you got that moment of something needed to change, how did you go about adjusting and rewriting your story to something, one of victory, self-acceptance, courage, and authenticity that you talk about?
Sure. Yeah. I know that's a good question. And I think, one thing I want to just point out to anyone who's listening to this and maybe thinking, okay, I can relate with what she's saying. I've got the sense of like, this is not the life I want and I want to do something about it.
Yeah.
At the time, that's what I knew. How to change the story or how to rewrite it, I had no clue. But what I was clear on was this was no longer enough for me. So I just want to encourage someone, if you're feeling this way, but you feel like, I still don't know what's the direction I need to go in or how do I change this, it's still okay. That's fine. The fact that you've awoken to not being content with the status quo, that is a good first step. Awareness is everything.
Yeah.
So I think for me, how I then started rewriting the story was asking questions. So I say this to a lot of my coaching clients. I'm always saying, just start asking the questions, because when you ask the question, the answer that pairs up with that question will find its way to you. So I was asking a lot of questions. Who am I? What am I good at? What do I really enjoy? Who do I want to be? What is my purpose? I remember I would ask those questions over and over to whoever was willing to listen, even to myself, because I journal a lot.
Right.
And I think in doing that, that's when I started unlocking those answers. Those answers came to find me. Sometimes it took longer for some of these answers to come to me. Some answers are still coming, but the point is I started asking the questions. And so in doing that, I began exploring different things outside of the norm. So joining maybe groups or organizations outside of what I usually would, or starting to speak to people, who were maybe a bit further ahead, and I could sort of start getting guidance. And then I started seeing a life coach for myself, because there was a stage at my workplace where I was essentially coaching people into the roles and jobs they actually wanted. Right. And I was still stuck in this place. And then someone said to me, you make a really good life coach. I had no idea what that was. So I went to look it up and I was like, oh my gosh, they're describing me. So I wanted to make sure this is what I wanted. So I saw a life coach for about 6 months, and that was it. That's when the rewriting of the story was more active and intentional. Yeah. It was looking for someone to be a mirror to help me make sense of the questions I was asking and to start charting a way forward in terms of getting the answers or working to those answers. Exactly. And that's really where it started. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. I like the fact that you started by asking yourself the questions. I'm always a big fan of that whole idea of sometimes we want to change our lives, but we don't know how to do it. But what you've just described is focus on what you want. And if you don't know what you want, start asking the questions. Because there's a part in our brain called the reticular activating system that will actually go out into the universe and start finding those solutions. So there's no coincidence that you bumped into or found a life coach, that you started coaching people. It was all this grand design for this part of your life. So that's beautiful. Absolutely. I like that.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna. Very well put.
You too. And how do you obviously sometimes when we go on this journey of figuring out who we are and what we want to do, and once we get it, for you, Sonia, how do you ensure that you continue to tell yourself this positive narrative, that you don't fall back into the old ways of thinking? So how do you ensure you continue to tell yourself this positive narrative today and in the future? What tools do you use?
Sure. So I think it's really important to just identify tools that work for you as an individual. They'll be different for different people.
Okay.
And it took me a while to get to this point. I would say I tried out many tools. So I tried out, for instance, fasting, praying, I tried out, intense exercising, the things that you're told, wake up at 5 a.m., develop that habit of journaling. I just basically, like you said, as I was seeking the answers, I came across different answers that people offered that worked for them. And I tried them out. And in doing so, I was able to sift and understand, okay, this one doesn't seem to be sticking with me. It's not really making an impact or difference in my life. So what I did is I eventually sort of came full circle and identified a couple of key things that I try and practice on a daily basis that keep me grounded and centered and living in the present moment, so that I do remember there was a version of me. There's a path that I've come from. There's the version of me today, and there's a version of me that I can see in the future and that I want to work towards. And those tools currently, I would say, are when I wake up in the morning, I generally do not touch my phone. So no social media, messages, all of that. I allow my mind to wake up to just what's going on within me. So as a codependent and someone who wants to please people, I had to identify that I need to understand my needs for myself first. I need to get in tune with that so that I can meet them for myself versus waking up, latching on to, and I'm also an empath, latching on to everyone else's needs, trying to, fulfill those and get, rattled up with that I forget who I am and what it is I want. Right. So it's very important for me, first thing in the morning, spend time by myself. So I do that. I have affirmations that I read and that I say to myself. And then I also meditate for about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes every morning. And then I also have a gratitude list every single day. I write down a minimum. For me, it's a minimum of 3 things I'm grateful for, regardless of what I'm going through. And then I also journal how I'm feeling, what's been happening that could have been impacting my life. And those things certainly help to maintain the positive attitude and mindset, and to remind me that I am on a journey. It's not perfect. However, I am capable of taking care of myself, of becoming the woman I want to be, and just holding up a mirror to myself and saying, this is who you are. You may not feel it on certain days, but it's the truth. So yeah, those are some things. Those are the tools: meditation, affirmations, journaling, and tuning into self. Yeah.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that. I definitely use the same tools, and I must say,
okay,
my most popular one at the moment is meditation, because it's something I've introduced, and it's mind blowing. If you know how to do it right, it allows you to start every day fresh, and not because I think there was a podcast I was listening to that everybody kind of starts the day with a past. The moment you pick up your phone, the moment you start thinking about what happened yesterday, you're bringing all the past luggage today, and then you have to deal with all of that in today. So rather just start with today. And I think meditation has been such an instrumental part for not just you and me, but so many people. So thank you for sharing.
Definitely.
That. Yeah.
No problem. And so sorry, one more I forgot was yoga. Yoga was life-changing for me, especially if you're an empath and a people pleaser, because I tried the whole high intensity, training and all of that. It doesn't work for my body. Yoga is pretty good. Yoga and walking, being in nature. Yeah. So that's another one. Yeah.
I love that. We can go and hike together.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
I love
For
working
sure.
with data. So how do you, I mean, all these tips you're giving out here, how do you help others overcome similar situations and live more authentic life, or authentic lives,
Sure.
sorry? Because I know you're also
Yeah.
a life coach, as you mentioned. So
Correct.
what do you do with people, and how do you help them?
How do I help them? Sure. So it's funny when I first get a client, they expect that I'm going to tell them what to do and how to rewrite their story, right?
Yeah.
And that's the first disclaimer. I actually want to let me read you this quote that really encapsulates it so well
Okay.
about what I do as a coach or the role of a coach. So it says, good coaches believe that the individual always has the answer to their own problems, but understands that they may need help to find the answer. So coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. It is helping them to learn rather than teaching them. So that's really my job, or how I work with my clients. I have found tools and things that work really well for me. And what I do with a client, initially it's about unpacking who are you as an individual.
Right.
Helping a client to face themselves truly and honestly. And that comes in the form of some exercises and open-ended questions that force, a client to really sit back and process how they think, how they respond to life, what's happened to them, how they, what triggers them, and what doesn't really work for them. What we take on habits that sometimes have been indirectly passed on to us, or that we've been told these are really good, and yet you find you're stuck in a rut, or they're not really resonating with you as an individual. So it's also challenging those things. Look at what you've been doing, and then ask them, could there be something else you could be doing, or could there be something else you could be looking at?
Right.
So for me, that's the most important work I do with a client. It's really helping them hold up a mirror to themselves and saying, okay, who am I at the core, and what really works for me? Then from there, it's helping them identify how balanced they feel in their different areas of their lives, and which areas they feel they would like to work on. Because many of us generally go to the same things. Oh, I don't like my job, or oh, I can't seem to be working things out in my relationship. And actually, it's about looking at the entirety of your life. There's different areas that impact your life, and identifying, how do I feel, or how are these areas looking for me? Not what I'm told, but for me.
Yeah.
And in doing that, a lot of clients are shocked that, okay, I thought it was my job, but actually it's my self-development, or actually it's my spirituality. So it's helping them really come to the crux, the root issue. And in doing that, then we're able to chart a way forward of, what do you want to do about that?
Yeah.
So that's essentially how I help my clients. And then I obviously share tools that I've developed based on what works for me, and tailored to each client, seeing their journey, what they're working towards. And then together we come up with a plan that helps them to chart a new course for themselves.
That's beautiful. So you're like a human guardian angel, basically.
I guess I've never heard it put that way, but yes, I suppose. I suppose you could put it that way. Yeah.
And the reason I say that is I was watching a very famous, I forgot his name, but he's a guru of, I think it's not, maybe it's Islam or something, but he was basically talking about how in life.
Oh, Sadhguru, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Possibly.
Yeah.
But he basically said everybody in life is, well, God put all of us on earth, and each of us is writing our own test. So it's very hard for, like, your test and my test. Our exam papers are very different. And a lot of people want to ask, Sonia, please show me what's in your exam paper. Maybe it will help me. But the reality is you can only write your test. Your exam paper is so unique to you. And as a life coach, what you're doing is you're kind of helping them to figure out their own test. instead of going to ask other people, what should I do about my job? What should I do? Because everyone will talk from their perspective, but they're all writing their own exam. And I like what you've just, put out is you ask the questions and you help guide them through their own exam. So that's pretty amazing. So you're a human guardian angel.
I love that. I'm actually going to use that analogy going forward. I really like that. Yeah, I'm helping them write their own test. You're spot on. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Spot on. Yeah.
And then what would you say to people who are watching this as a take-home tip or recommendation based on our conversation?
Sure. So I would say, whatever feelings come up for you, especially when it comes to your self-belief and how satisfied you are with your life. A lot of the time, or generally, if you are watching this, there's probably some negative feelings around that. Maybe you're feeling frustrated, maybe you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling unsure or confused. And I will say to you, sit with those emotions. A lot of us are quick to run away from the negative emotions. And I like to say to my clients, our feelings are indicators. They're guideposts. They're telling us a story. And we often want to shoot them. They're messengers. We want to shoot the messenger before we have received the message that it's trying to give. There is a message there for you. That is I would say, start there. That is the most important thing. Sit with that message, that anxiety. And by sit, I mean, take the time to reflect on how am I feeling? Where do I think these feelings are stemming from? What do I think these feelings are trying to show me? How often do they come up? When do they usually come up? So sit with those questions, take the time, percolate on them, and whatever answers come up for you, jot them down. And that is a really key first step in working towards a better self-belief, a better understanding of who you are. And from there, you will start getting the answers that you're asking. So make friends with your feelings, positive or negative. They're messengers. Don't shoot them.
That's awesome. Thank you for that tip, Sonia. And I'm sure you have so many more insights for other people. Where can the audience find you and get more insights from you?
Sure. Yeah, no, I've got lots. And I try to keep it simple because I know how it can be overwhelming. So I try to give the simplest, but there's so much more I love to share. You can find me. I'm on Instagram at The Authenticity Chaser. I also have a website that I'm currently putting together, but it's pretty much done. It's www.theauthenticitychaser.com. Then you can also find me on LinkedIn. Just search for Sonia Dube. I am there. And get in touch with me. Send me your questions. Let me know how it's going. Are you friends with your messengers, your feelings, and how you're feeling about self-belief? I'm always keen to help.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'll put all those links at the bottom of the video.
Awesome. Thank you.
This has been such a great discussion, Sonia. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and sharing your story and your lessons with us. And we really thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability. I think that's important. We need to share these kind of stories and wrangle and, with our messengers, so to speak, because that's really what helps us to move from where we are to where we want to be. So thank you for coming on the show and telling us about your story.
It's an absolute pleasure. Sorry, Anna, and thank you for starting this platform. I think stories are powerful. Honestly, we impact each other's lives through our stories. So I love the premise of your show. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Sonia. So we like to end up with sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
We like to end up with a very short, fun game called This or That Game. I know you're taking some time off next week, but I'd love to know, would you rather travel to Europe or Asia, and why?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I want to say both. But if I really, really had to pick, I would say Asia, because my last trip was Europe. So now I'd love to explore maybe a bit more of Asia, because I also love their culture. It's different, it's unique, and I feel like you learn so much about yourself by immersing yourself in other people's cultures. So yeah, Asia.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
No problem.
So that's it from today, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much, Sonia, for your time.
It's a pleasure. Cheers, everyone.
Bye. Well, there you have it, a few minutes of deep, impactful insights. Thank you very much to our guests. You can find our guest links in the description below, so check those out and stay in touch with them. For key takeaways on how to reflect and apply what we've talked about here, I've put a free framework of reflective questions based on my book 10,000 Steps Towards Me that will help guide you through your self-discovery process. Click on the link in the description to jump into my framework tool, a dozen reflective doses. Remember, there's nothing more purposeful than finding you and taking the leap to live authentically. Feel free to share your stories with me. I can't wait to hear about how you made that leap for yourself. Until next time!